various texts, both formal and everyday. And what does that tell us about the value systems then? And then can you name the social issue and the value system at work and whose interests are served? So I'm sure I've got maybe like 1 or 2 minutes left. I'll go through a very quick example. So I love maps, mainly because yes, in some classrooms, so in social studies or in geography, you use them as part of the curriculum, but maps are also incredibly everyday texts. There isn't a school that I've been to that doesn't have a map or a range of maps of some sort. But revealing that they're constructed is a really helpful critical activity in unpacking, well, hold on, these taken for granted texts that the one that we see before us, the Mercator projection, appears in school atlases and textbooks as giant wall posters, and are sometimes, even if they're not used specifically, just take up space in a lot of schools. But unpacking the Mercator projection helps us understand, well, some choices have been made by cartographers, by map designers. So when you move from a 3D object into a 2D object, you have to make certain choices about what parts of that image get distorted and what remains accurate. The Mercator projection maintains relative shape, but distorts relative size. So when we look at this, this is not a true reflection of the size of each of the continents, although their shape is accurate. When you change those decisions, so the Gall-Peter projection then came out and revealed, well, hold on, if you distort relative size, relative shape, and instead maintain relative size, then actually a whole new set of relationships emerge, right? So suddenly the issues faced by the African continent seem much larger here in the global perspective, right? So looking at these two maps, already there are certain perhaps stereotypes about travel, about population sizes, about resources and where they come from, about cultures and diversity that are being maintained and problematically maintained because we have a particular view of the world. Other maps try to displace this, but create new relations of power, right? So in the previous two, we have a north-south divide. The UN logo, for example, tries to disrupt this, but in many ways sets up a new kind of center margins relationship between the global north and the global south. And so although a redesign and its intentions are quite positive, there are certain limitations to that. The orthograph projection is probably the most accurate projection that we have today, but is not particularly common in schools, but draws on indigenous Japanese knowledge systems in order to present to us the most accurate representation of the world. And so there's a question about why that perspective maybe does not get into school spaces. And finally, I'll just flag up the Decolonial Atlas, which is a brilliant online resource on Instagram, Twitter, and available as a website, but also shows us a range of redesigns that help us disrupt what we think we know about these everyday texts.